Ready or not. When I was a kid, we would gather all the other kids in the neighborhood and play outdoor games. One of my favorites was hide and seek. Yep, the name says it all. One person had to close their eyes while everyone else found a place to hide. And soon the designated seeker would yell out, "Ready or not, here I come." And then he or she would begin to look for the people who were hiding. Okay, it was simpler days back then, for sure. Sometimes on our personal journeys, we want to yell out, "Wait, I'm not ready." God puts a challenge before us, and we want to know more details before we're willing to commit. We aren't ready, and we aren't going. Pastor and author Mark Batterson says that is bad thinking. Using the life of Abraham as an example, Batterson says we have it all wrong. He says, you never are going to be ready. You'll never be ready to get married. You'll never be ready to have kids. You'll never be ready to start a business or to go back to school or move to the mission field. You'll never have enough faith, enough cash, or enough courage. Mark Batterson goes on to say, I never have been, and I'm sure I never will be, ready for anything God has called me to do. Well, don't be too discouraged. The writer of Hebrews points out how Abraham lived is how we should live our life of faith. When God called Abraham, it says he went without knowing where he was going. Hebrews 11:9. Now, if that were us today, we'd likely want a long-term plan before we stepped out in faith. Does that mean we shouldn't plan or use wisdom or experience in our long-term decision-making? No, not at all. We don't need to take a thoughtless or prayerless approach to our spiritual journey, but it does mean that we need to be ready to move on whatever revelation the Lord shares with us. Batterson says we need to take on the attitude, why not? Dare to dream. Dare to take God at His word without knowing the whole story. If you spend all your time getting ready, you may miss the wonderful adventure that the Lord has for you. The best illustration in my personal life was the launching of Media Alliance International. At a time when many of my friends were retiring and heading off to the golf course or hitting the road in a recreational vehicle, I sensed God leading me to start this nonprofit ministry. It meant we would have to raise all the resources. We would have to start from scratch designing a ministry with worldwide impact, and we would do it with no staff. On paper, and in some people's minds, it did not make sense. I guess in my heart, I was saying, why not? Okay, there could have been many reasons why not, but I didn't let those things deter me from what I sensed the Lord wanted me to do. Gratefully, my wife Judy was in full agreement, and there were others who encouraged me as we took those first steps. Trusting in God's provision overrode the fear that could have stopped me. Now, over 10 years later, by God's direction, Media Alliance works with dynamic ministry partners all over the world in over 40 countries and has virtual offices in 4 key regions of the world. 15,000 Christians in media ministries have been trained and encouraged as they serve often in challenging places. If we're not careful, says Batterson, we become so afraid of doing the wrong thing, it keeps us from doing the right thing. Abraham didn't know where he was going. He didn't know what he would be doing there when he arrived, but his focus was on following the Lord. Abraham was obedient to the revelation God had given him. And the writer of Hebrews puts him in that hall of fame of the Lord's faithful servants. So, what is God telling you? What does He want you and your ministry to do? Take the attitude, why not? This ministry was launched over 10 years ago, now global, working with media leaders in well over 40 countries. Find out more about it at MediaAlliance.net. And you can help us by liking, subscribing, and sharing these videos. Thanks, and God's best.